Good morning.
Now, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
So maybe this is a good time to talk about what happens when tech goes wrong.
Which is unfortunately more often than we like.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going down this path. If first of all, good morning and thank you for going for a walk with me. But we just had some audio video issues, which honestly I think they're still happening, but we'll just roll with it for now. So you said which they happen more than we like, but isn't it true that from a user perspective, if it happens once, it's more than we like?
Answer is maybe, right? I mean, yes, obviously, we never want to have problems, but I think realistically, we all know what's going to happen. It's how in the way is it of your day? So when you have a day that's stacked back to back and you have no spare minutes, it's much more of an annoyance than it is if you've got plenty of time, you just happen to be jumping on doing something, and there you go.
Well, look, you're somebody, and we'll get into this. You're somebody who, your experience is insanely diverse. I was thinking about you this morning as we were I knew we were going to do this. And, the amount of boards that you've served on and advised, the left-hand turns and right-hand turns that you've taken within your career that I think is by design. And I'll tell a story in just a little bit about a conversation I remember we had years ago. But, well, talk about that for a sec, because you've viewed and tested a lot of tech platforms, but I guess I'm more curious to get your take on the user experience when things do go wrong as an organization. I find in maybe it's our industry, maybe it's not. It's very quick to say it doesn't work versus understanding that there's going to be little bumps along the way. I'm curious to get your take there on how you help organizations manage through the bumps and the emotion of the bumps.
Great question. Like, that is so thoughtful and insightful in terms of what we have to deal with. So let's just start from a non-tech experience. And because I know that a lot of your audience are in our industry, and a lot of them are originators. Mm-hmm. And so as you think about an originator, and you think about the mortgage process, I would pause to say that more times than not, we have a bump in the road, right? Not every borrower is an 800 credit score, 5 years on the job, W-2 salaried, right? Life, right? We just have life. And when you look at the data from a customer experience standpoint, it actually shows that when there's a bump and you resolve it quickly and you're good at communication, that those customers are more loyal to you, more likely to use you again, more likely to send you a referral, because people get that life happens. And so you think about that, and let's now extrapolate that to technology. And I will tell you about a study that I know of that talks about tech and kind of the differences. So there was someone who trained a robot to play rock, paper, scissors. You've played this game, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine going in and playing rock, paper, scissors with a robot, and the robot cheats.
Okay.
You can imagine that even knowing the robot was going to cheat, your reaction to that is not good, right? There's an expectation that humans make mistakes and machines do not. And so when we think about the experience of the loan officer and the borrower, their trusted client who comes to them and a mistake is okay, we don't have that same compassion for a machine. Our mm-hmm. expectation is perfection.
Great point. That's a great point. You made me think of something also, and I think it's fine to use his name. I don't think he would mind, but Danny Deaton, probably. Okay. So when I first started doing what I did 20 years ago, Danny Deaton was running a region for CTX. And I was going to present an opportunity to Danny. And I didn't know Danny. I didn't have a relationship with Danny at that time. And so I go to my boss and I said, I'm going to make this presentation. And he said, well, you better have your shit together if you're going to make that presentation to Danny, because Danny expects things to be vetted backwards and forwards. And I said, okay. So I made the intro and it went fine, but something went wrong along the way very early on. I think I made a pretty big mistake. I don't remember what it was, but I do remember I owned the mistake. Nobody taught me how to, customer experience or customer success. I didn't know that. I just owned it and called him. And then from that moment forward, our relationship was solidified. I didn't have to be perfect anymore. He just knew that he was going to get the truth. He was going to get transparency, and he was going to get effort to clean up whatever messes were created. And I think that's what you're saying, that from a customer experience and success perspective, it's not, sure, our goal is to maybe have no bumps in the road, but maybe we should sort of look forward to a bump or two so that we can show them who we really are. I think that's kind of what you're saying.
I don't know that I would want to look forward to a bump or two. I do want to get all the friction out. I want to get all the friction out of the process. I want the process to be amazing and people to have things. The data just shows that it doesn't have to be perfect. And look, I don't think we should not strive for that. Particularly when it comes to the largest transaction that most people will ever make in their lives. And it's also so fraught with emotion already. I'm in the process of looking for a new house right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not fun. Like, one, there are not a lot of houses on the market. Two, they're all expensive. Three, rates just keep going up. It creates a lot of emotional pressure. And I think it's good for me to go through purchasing or refinancing a home every few years to remember what it's exactly like to be a consumer. I can remember when I bought my most recent home, and I was so proud of myself, right? I was like, I'm in the business. I put together every document that they should need. And then they asked me for something else. And I was like, what? Doesn't seem okay. And, it was a holdover from COVID that they needed an extra pay stub that normally we wouldn't have had.
Right.
And it was a good reminder to me that things do change. Even the things that I know change. And I had a good loan officer who walked me through the process, who explained why they were asking for that.
I love that. I was asked recently to speak at a thing in November, and the person running the agenda was asking for ideas and just thoughts, not only on what I'm going to speak about, but just their entire agenda. And one of the things that was coming up a lot was, maybe I did a LinkedIn post not that long ago where I was referencing that scene from Dead Poet Society, the "Oh Captain, My Captain," but it was the what happened after he was teaching them to stand up on the desk and to see things from a different perspective. You've never looked at the room standing on a desk before. And that was a little bit about what we talked about, the market that we've been in now for a while, and also people that have been originating for 5, 10, 15 years or more. Have you stood on a desk lately? And that was your stand on the desk moment, it sounds like.
A great way to put it. I think it's interesting too to think about I know you talk to a ton of originators and you build great relationships with them. So they share with you what their real experiences are. And if you think about somebody who's only been in the business 5, 10, let's even go to 15 years, they've pretty much only been in a declining interest rate environment.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been through, they missed the financial crisis. They missed some of the things that those of us who have been in the industry a little longer have been through. And I think it gives them, one, a great perspective on just how crazy this market is. And even though we know that this is unlike any of these other cycles that we've been through, sometimes it's easy to default to how we did it in the past. And this is completely different. And so that perspective of somebody who's been in the business 5 years, who is coming up with good ideas on how to drive business or how to be there for the next generation, we've got to be open to what that looks like and combine that with the experience we have from previous down cycles.
Yeah, such a good take. It was a good segue too, because I did want to talk to you about this. I don't know if you remember, but years ago, really when you and I were just kind of getting to know each other, I think I had to talk you into meeting with me probably at a conference forever ago. And we had lunch or something, and you were, and still are, but you were the queen of Savannah at the time. I mean, you just crushed it in that market. And but I was asking you about the market and kind of what you built in the market. And you just sort of made a comment to me like, I've got other things I'm looking to do. And you said, I can't really tell you about it right now, but there's things and this is a long time ago, and it was very tech focused, and it was a little more progressive, I think, in thinking. And so your career now has gone in those directions. You've done those things that you said you were going to do to me, even though you didn't say exactly what it was going to be. What was the trigger for you though, when you, because look, it's not easy. You're a successful originator, then you're a successful producing branch manager, then maybe you build a bigger team around you with an area or a region. Super lucrative, do really well. What's the trigger then to say, I want to do more? Is it because you wanted more from the industry? Is it because you had an itch that you needed to scratch? What was it for you?
I think one, you give me way too much credit, but I appreciate it. It's kind and generous in thought. And I think that we should, just as humans, be kind and generous in thought and assume the best in people. So thank you for doing that for me. I appreciate it.
That was
I think
my
it's part of the
experience.
reasons I like
I'm telling you my experience.
I want to talk about an experience when I was running a branch here in Savannah, and actually I'm sitting here in Savannah as we record this today.
Right on.
So I am excited, right, to be in my home, my adopted hometown. Right, I've lived here for 26 years at this point, and in the process of moving to Austin. Sitting here in a branch, my goal is to always get it to be as, I don't want to say perfect, but the process to be where it didn't need me. And I know a lot of people, when there's problems and fires, they feel needed. I feel needed and that I've done a good job when nobody needs me, when they wonder if the job can run without me, because that means I've put everything into it. And I'm sitting there one day when we've done that, and the branch is running really smoothly and closings are going like we would expect. And, the random bumps aren't happening. And I'm focused on my kids at one point, thinking about how I communicate with them. And this is, we think that Snapchat and Instagram and these things have been around forever, and they really hadn't. My kids were, middle school, high school, that type of time frame. And Snapchat, I'd just gotten an email from an organization that was warning us about how to interact with Snapchat and what it was doing to our kids, because it was brand new, like literally brand new. And it was the hottest ticket out there. And they were talking about how it was growing and what it was doing to our kids. And I thought, well, you know what? I should probably download this. And it's literally me and what I felt like were only middle schoolers in this app. And I did it because I wanted to understand how it was impacting my kids. And then I discovered two things from that. One is there were a few other parents like me, but there weren't many of us. And because we kind of knew each other in the industry, we really built a bond and had something to talk about, to share. And so I think when you think about relationship building and the relationships you've built, the relationship we have built over the years and others, it has to be more than one facet, right? It's got to be multifaceted. And so finding those little things where you can connect with people is hugely important. So kind of set that aside, even though it may be one of the most valuable nuggets we talk about today. But two, I was like, how will this impact the loan officers that I work with? And I started kind of in this journey of learning how to use social media. And I got connected to another human who was really on the forefront and cutting edge of social media, still is, on a lot of different things. And I got connected to this human. He created my Twitter account for me. And I had like one follower and he's got like 1 million. And it was like, holy cow. An amazing human to learn from and to grow. And my interest in tech kind of started from there, from that process drive, from the thing like, how do we improve? How do we better serve our customers? And our customers are not only our borrowers, but they're our internal customers. How do we drive quality so that they can have a better quality of life? And we're not asking people to work 100 hours a week when volume spikes, or we're not laying off people when volume drops. And what does it look like to create that for the industry and create that for our teams?
What do you think, what do you see right now, maybe examples that is working really well? And then opposite, I'm curious what you're seeing that's not working well, whether it's individually or organizationally across companies in the industry.
Look at a high level, and I want to start with what's not working.
Okay.
When people have great visions, and I love that about founders, that they come in and they have this idea about how they're going to change things. And you kind of have founders that fall into two camps. One is they went through the process themselves and they are like, magically, they're going to be able to fix it. And they have some really amazing ideas. What they don't have and what they don't usually gain before coming to talk to, a company is actual knowledge of the industry. And sometimes what they think is not underpinned in reality. And I've seen that a number of times. Two, then you have the founders who have been through it and they bring you a good product, but they're so excited about what they're going to do. They're sometimes telling you things that might be called vaporware in the industry, right? They're selling you the vision and it doesn't actually exist.
Mm.
And I think those are the two things that go wrong when we start talking about tech and give people this, hey, I don't want to do tech. I don't trust it. It hasn't worked. To the very beginning of our conversation, we expect perfection and then it shows up and it's not there. And now we have this distrust of all tech. And we're pretty behind as an industry when you start to look at other things. I look at Amazon and I can pick up my phone and I can order something and it'll be here at 4:00 in the morning. Not that I need something to arrive at 4 a.m., but you never know.
Right.
You certainly can. And Amazon is using technology that predicts based on what people are looking at, what your past order history is, where you live, where to ship that stuff to so that it is available for that quick delivery. It's not that it just happened to be in the warehouse that day. They're actually using data to do that. And are we using data to drive the decisions that we need to have?
Do you also see, okay, let's talk about the industry, because I do hear this and I experience it. I mean, we're SaaS and we're listening and getting as much feedback from users and non-users as possible. Do you also find that if we're behind a little bit as an industry, that it's not just that the tech is behind, but the user expectation maybe is a little bit behind? And I also stick adoption in that part of the question as well. Like, I think I've noticed, look, I had a text message this week from a company that we're probably going to start to do a lot with. But we're not doing anything with them right now. We're just strategizing, we're consulting, and they love our tech and something's going to happen for sure. But I got a text message from someone that said, I really hope this is a winner because we've pivoted on similar platforms X amount of times in just the last 24 months. And so then you've got the users at, the street level users, I'll call them, that they then just get frustrated and start to throw in the towel and say, well, are we really going to go with this one? So it's both the individual user being patient enough to go through the adoption cycle, but also the organization setting a culture of commitment. I'm curious what you see there and challenges and things that maybe are success stories or failure stories. I'm curious where your head is on that.
Change management's a real thing. And change fatigue is also there. So think about the mental state of somebody who's coming in, and you said it, they've tried 3-4 things in the last 24 months, and they didn't work. So what's the expectation? They're looking at you and they don't know that you have an amazing product. They're basing their opinion on past performance, which in many cases is not necessarily indicative of future success. I think that's why the governing bodies require that you put that on all forward-looking projections and statements. And, you'd like to think that when something did really well in the past, it will continue to do well in the future. But that's what people assign to probabilities, right? If it did well in the past, it's going to do well in the future. If I had a good experience with tech in the past, my new tech is probably going to work well and I'm likely to adopt it. But if it worked poorly in the past, I'm going to assign that blame to you, even though you weren't part of that failure. And so from a change management perspective, we have to adopt that. Now let's pull that aside and talk about whether or not it was the tech. Was it the implementation? Was it how you use the system? When I look at a lot of tech and a lot of implementations, it's here's how the tech works and here's the way it changes your process. Adopt this and it will drive these increased efficiencies. This is what will happen. And then people get it and they go, yeah, but
Mhm.
I want to change this and do this. And then they don't understand why it doesn't work like it's supposed to. Now, it's not to say that there shouldn't be customizations. It's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is you can only do so much and then expect the tech to perform differently.
Well,
So
and go ahead, keep going.
I was gonna, when you go into a company, so I think your partnership goes and let's say you're going to launch in I'm just going to make this up, January. Right, you're going to come in right after Christmas because you know that nobody's going to do a, people are distracted. They have a lot going on. They're worried about the market. So you're going to be smart and you're going to launch in, the first week of January, get people excited about the new year, what they're going to do, what their recruiting goals are going to be, and how they're going to attack 2024. You have to be cognizant of what all is on their plate, right? Which is why you picked not doing it in the middle of holiday parties and kids being out of school. And, I'm pushing us forward a month, I know, but just it goes with the example.
Right.
So you're choosing to do that in a way that actually drives the adoption because you're doing it at a time when people are listening and they're ready to learn. I always think about how does something land? New hire onboarding. You work with a lot of originators and a lot of executives who go to a new company. And when you go to a new company, I'll use as an originator as an example. If on day one, you go to new hire training and you spend a week in new hire training and they teach you how to onboard an FHA loan and what the nuances are of their USDA and how to get a non-QM loan through. And it's like, okay, great. Conceptually, I get all that. It all makes sense. Did that information stick? Probably not. When are you going to need it? The day you input your first loan.
Right.
So is your onboarding system designed to resend that information where it lands and it sticks because they actually get to use it on the day they import that first, let's call it a USDA loan? That's when they need that reminder. So is your system smart enough to recognize that? Or do you have a journey, a buddy, or whatever it is, whatever your process is, that allows for that to be captured and land? And the same thing goes when you're rolling out technology. Are you doing a brain dump and hoping everybody remembers it? And then assuming that all the tech is going to be great and you've washed your hands and walked away? Or are you thinking about the user experience? Are you thinking about how to drive adoption and ensuring you're a good implementation partner?
Those are 20 sound bites all in one. That was fantastic. It also makes me think about our industry that in some ways is so individual and entrepreneurial, where there's this balance between corporate tools and resources, and then tools and resources that are made available. And so there's not that level of, okay, we have an LOS. I'm gonna train you on the LOS. It's the one we use. It's all you got. There's no other options. But then we have several options when it comes to CRM, when it comes to data, analytical tools, when it comes to maybe some marketing platforms or lead generation platforms. And so if we have all these options at the originator level, superficially, that sounds like a great idea. But then there's that possibility that you're never going to have stickiness. You're never going to have consistency and predictability. You're going to struggle more to be able to leverage what is working because you're diluting it amongst a bunch of things that might be kind of working. Curious to get your take on that, because I'm sure you've experienced.
When you said somebody has several CRMs, it made my heart hurt because one, if that's the case, think about what level of support you're providing to your loan officers in terms of driving production. That to me sounds like, and it doesn't mean it always is, but it sounds like you're expecting the loan officer to drive all that work instead of having them partner with a marketing professional who can get in and say, here are the campaigns, here are the things that you should be doing. Because we have all the data, let us implement that for you. Hey, you don't want to do it? That's okay. Like, there should be some level of choice. This shouldn't be a top-down, cram-down effort, but there should be this conversation and this ability to support. And if you're trying to support 7 CRMs, I know I just made up that number. That wasn't the number you said. You said several. I'm just going to like blow it up and say 7, or even if it's just 2.
Right.
How do you provide the level of support that you need for a loan officer to really be out there focusing on the things that they do that drive business? This is the support. My expectation when I was an originator is that this is the support the company is giving you. This is the support that I'm expected to provide to our team.
Changing gears just a little bit. Look out. You're either going to love this question or hate it. Look out 6 months from now. Where are we?
When I would meet with a customer and they would come in, they'd say, tell me what rates are going to do. I'd pull out my little crystal ball that had a giant crack in it. And I was like, yeah, it's broken. It doesn't work. And besides that, my prediction in $1 might get you a candy bar. Maybe. Right? Today it won't, but we're talking about a few years ago. It might have actually gotten you a candy bar back then. Today it'll get you a fun size candy bar. You can go get your fun size candy bar.
Well, it is Halloween is coming up. So you're the fun size house.
We're the fun. No, we like to look, our neighborhood, there will be adult trick-or-treat things.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. It's Halloween's a fun time in our neighborhood.
I love it.
So we'll see how it is in the Austin neighborhood, because that's where I'll be this Halloween.
Something tells me that's going to be pretty. Yeah, you go from Savannah to Austin. I love how you're going from one killer town to another killer town.
Who wants to live in a boring place? Let's live somewhere fun. So predictions for 6 months from now. Let's move into, I think we're going to really have a tough time this winter, right? It's definitely going to be a winter. We've got higher interest rates, low inventory, and we've got extreme volatility. And you start to talk to any economist, and it'll make you want to pick up day drinking. The predictions are not rosy and happy. We're gonna struggle for a bit. And I think that's going to go into Q1. I am optimistic that as we're going into an election year, and as we think about historically what happens, again, past performance, not necessarily indicative of future, but past performance has told us that we tend to have good cycles during election years. And it hopefully will be enough to kind of push us out of where we are. You're also starting to see a lot of creativity. We talked earlier about those folks who are newer in the business. You brought it up, those folks who have been here 5, 10, 15 years. Even some of the more veteran folks, there are some great creative ideas coming out about how do we unlock inventory. I know that you're aware, but maybe not everybody listening is aware that FHFA had what they called the Velocity tech sprint, where they had, I think it was 80 industry professionals from all areas, from servicing, from originations, from operations, consultants, like developers. Everybody came together and started talking about how do we move the industry forward. Now, obviously, this was tech focused, but I know that our group talked a lot about how do we unlock inventory? What are some things that we could do? What are some things the agencies could do? And the agencies have been very diligent, and FHFA as well, with following up to ensure that these ideas are actually vetted, and can we get them implemented, and how do we improve the industry? So I'm hoping these ideas continue to come. I saw an opinion piece, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, but don't quote me on that. It might have been an American Banker, that talked about a TARP 2.0 for a way to increase liquidity at banks so that you didn't see this shrinking of the credit box, particularly in commercial, multifamily, and smaller consumer lending, right? Mortgage has a little bit a little bit more of an engine there in terms of churning liquidity that others don't. And so I hope that we continue to see that creativity, that ingenuity, and that over the next 6 months, we have an opportunity to implement some of those things so that as we move into April, May, June, we really start to see a different market.
So sticking with that, as we sort of wrap it up a little bit, and then I want to ask you one final question. My son or one of your kids is getting into the business and they're going to originate. This is one of those markets where 6 months from now, 12 months from now, we're going to see names on leaderboards that we've never seen before. And it's going to be, look, I remember when, the crash happened a long time ago, and there were companies that we had never heard of before that came out of that, and people that came out of it, and originators that started their careers during that period of time that they didn't have a perception of what it should be because they weren't doing it prior. So they hit it from a different angle. So if one of mine or one of your kids is like, hey, I'm getting in, give me 2 or 3 things that I should focus on right now, what would you have them focus on and get excited about? Because for them, it's really a buy low moment as an investor. If you just look at it as an industry as a whole, what are the 2 or 3 tips you're giving them?
Well, first thing is product knowledge. You can't be in this industry and not understand the depth and breadth of product and understand how it works and stay on top of that. Like that is probably the foundational piece. You really have to know how products work and how the industry works. So go and take the School of Mortgage Banking, go take the free courses that MBA offers, webinars. I know School of Mortgage Banking isn't free, but they have many webinars that are. Understand how a warehouse line works, understand how servicing works. Don't understand your one piece. I can remember originators who thought when they sent something off to closing that it was like hitting enter and that would magically send the package, right? When I used to send out closing packages, it was this. We had this box of things, and you would pull this document and this document and this document, and then you go type on it. And I know it's not that way anymore, but so we have made some technology progress. Look at that.
That's right.
We're not FedExing packages that were hand typed, and you hope that the photocopy was straight and good.
Right.
But you need to understand every aspect of the business. You need to know more than just what you do. You need to be able to have a conversation. And I think that there's a level expectation from consumers that you are able to talk about these things, right? So that's going to make a big difference. What is your knowledge base, product and industry wise? So that's the first thing. The second thing is look at what your controllables are. So if you're going to come in and you're going to start originating, so my son, your son comes in and says, we're going to start being an originator. Then it's what actions do you need to take that you can control? How many sales calls? How many pillars? As it's often been called in my history, are you focusing on realtors and builders and attorneys and CPAs and financial planners? What is that breadth? How are you focusing on your networking? What are you doing on social media? You can't rely on one referral source, which I've seen a lot of originators do. And when the market changes, it's really difficult for them to survive. Yeah. So build a strong foundation there with having multiple referral sources and know what you have to do each day to drive that. Approach it from a data standpoint. How many calls do I need to make? How many visits do I need to do? This has not been always the discipline that we have. So those are the 2 things.
Discipline. I love it. That's a word that we use often in our house. My son likes to say, motivation will only get you so far, but discipline will be the thing that gets you the furthest. And I don't know if I'm the one that said that to him, but if he says I did, then I'll happily take credit for it. But I like when he reminds me, some of the things that you said, I think are great. And there are also things that I use the sort of story here of a new person entering the business. But these are things that we've been in this business for 50. I mean, me, myself, you make me think of some things that I need to do a better job of, quite frankly, but because I'm seeing things through the lens of my 20 years of experience. Okay, before we break, and when we do break, don't hang up on me, even though we're going to kill the recording. so I can say what's up to you off the recording. What did we not talk about? And it doesn't have to be industry related. What's on your mind right now? What are you doing?
Here's what I would say. One, I love catching up with you. So I'm glad we're gonna hang out just a little bit, you and I, afterwards. And I hope to see you in Philly as well. I I was listening to some folks who have posted things on social talking about the Housing Wire conference that's being held in Austin as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
And as they look at day one and day two, and hearing some of the top producers and top leaders in our industry, they're saying the same thing that we're having this conversation. It's back to basics. It is go pull out, dust off some of the things that you were taught early in your career, some of the things you would look at if you were brand new, figure out how to do those. And I would say, check on people, make sure they're okay. You don't know what they're facing. Not only, you may have an idea of what they're facing in the industry, but you don't know what they're facing in their personal life. There's a lot going on in our country, in our world, and there are a lot of impacts on people. And you have always focused. It's one of the things I think you are so phenomenal at is relationship building. And you do it not only for your job, but just as a human. You're a great human from that standpoint. And pick up the phone. Don't send a text message. Don't do something. Write a card. Send people a note telling them what they meant to you. Pick up their day. Call them and just check on them and say, how are you doing? What can I do to make your day better? And I think you'll be surprised at not only how good you'll make that person feel, but how good you'll feel because you're putting that positive energy out into the world.
Oh my gosh, I love it. You just made my heart change. It just started to beat a little bit different. Thank you for what you said about me. Clearly, I've done right by you. It is a reminder that I do need to do better still by others, and we can all do better. You made me think of a conversation I had with a divisional president when I asked him a similar question, not on a podcast, just on a call. And he's very concerned about his originators, and not because it's, he said, look, yeah, some of them need to work harder. Some of them need to try new things. Some of them need to stop complaining. But I don't lose sight of the fact that a lot of them are going home at night and having very difficult decisions or conversations with their spouses and their families because financially they're not in the same spot that they were, and they're not in the spot that they thought they were going to be in. That creates emotion, and you make bad decisions around those emotions. Separately, I was at a soccer game last night, a local college soccer game with some friends, and at the end of the game, the home team won, so that was awesome. And a young man that was playing when it was over on the winning team dropped to his knees and started crying. And come to find out, he's from Israel. His family's in Israel. And it was one of those moments, like you just said, Christy, that I'm watching this kid crush it on the field, and he's having such a good time with his teammates, but you don't know what's really going on inside of his heart, inside of his head. So thank you for that reminder. Also, thank you for being a good guide and consultant to me and to our company, and such a good friend. And thanks for coming on the podcast. We'll do this again.
Thanks for having me. And I appreciate all the wisdom you've shared with me over the years and for your friendship. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you, Christy.